her face already contorted in a mask of pure, unadulterated fury, was mere inches from mine. She was shrieking, utterly unhinged, her voice cracking as she stomped her foot on my dusty driveway. I am the law here. This land is an affront, and I am going to reclaim it for the community. She grabbed the bright yellow flag marking my property line and violently ripped it out of the ground, tossing it into the air like a piece of trash. Then she pulled out her phone, dialing, her eyes fixed on me with a malevolent glare. You have no idea who you're messing with, freeloader, she spat, her voice dripping with venom. The sound of a large dump truck, my first shipment of fence posts, started rumbling up my road. And that's when everything went wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment. What would you do if this happened to you? And subscribe to HOA Files. My name is Josh, and I've always been a bit of a contrarian. I love open space, I hate rules, and I believe in doing my own thing. That's why when I was looking to move, I specifically avoided the sterile, planned communities. I found the Triple Crown Ranch. 10 beautiful acres of rugged land that abutted one of the most prestigious and notoriously uptight gated communities in the county, Stonebrook Crest Estates. The ranch was old, separated from Stonebrook by a creek and a dilapidated barbed wire fence, and crucially, it was not in their HOA. The property had been grandfathered out of all the modern zoning and community covenants. It was my perfect escape. The purchase went smoothly. I paid cash, got the deed, and started planning the renovation. The previous owner had warned me about the neighbors, especially the ones from Stonebrook, saying they had a history of looking down on the ranch. I figured a few icy stares were worth the peace and quiet. I was wrong. My first hint of trouble came before I even moved in. I hired a land surveyor to officially mark the boundary lines, mostly because I planned to replace that old fence. He was out there for hours, painstakingly hammering bright orange and yellow flags along the creek line and the road. The next morning, I drove up and found every single flag had been neatly pulled out of the ground, gathered in a pile and left next to my mailbox with a note taped to the box. The note, written in a furious cursive hand, read, "Private community. Keep your filth off our property." There was no signature. Just the HOA logo stamped haphazardly at the bottom. I called the surveyor, who just laughed. Happens all the time out here, buddy. They don't like new people, especially not on the ranch. I'll remark it, but you'll have to deal with the local wildlife. I knew he wasn't talking about deer. The first face-to-face confrontation came a week later. I was out back, cleaning up decades of brush and debris, running a small brush hog. It was loud, but it was during the day, and I was on my own land. Suddenly, a golf cart, the kind with plush seats and polished chrome, zoomed right up to my property line. Behind the wheel was Brenda Hayes, the queen bee, the self-appointed czar of Stonebrook Crest. She had the perfect, tight blonde ponytail and the expression of someone who had just stepped in something unpleasant. She got out, hands on her hips, shouting over the noise of the brush hog, "Turn that thing off. Immediately. You are disrupting the serenity of Stonebrook Crest." I killed the engine and folded my arms. "Good morning. I'm Josh. I own the ranch. I'm cleaning up. You are creating a noise violation." She shrieked. "We have a covenant against excessive noise between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. "That's great for Stonebrook," I replied, forcing a polite smile. "But I'm not in your HOA. Your covenants don't apply to me." She looked genuinely shocked, as if I had just spoken to her in a dead language. "Don't be ridiculous. Your property abuts ours. The standards of the community apply to everyone in the immediate vicinity. Your lack of compliance directly impacts our property values." "Ma'am, I checked the deeds," I said, pointing across the creek. "That creek is the boundary. I'm on my land, legally zoned for agricultural residential use. I can run this machine until sundown." She leaned in, her eyes narrowed. "You may not be in our HOA, but you are subject to the spirit of our community rules. I suggest you reconsider your attitude and your brush hog, or the HOA will be forced to take action." She stormed back to her golf cart, leaving me standing there shaking my head. They really thought they had jurisdiction over my land. The intimidation attempts escalated. I started getting official-looking letters from the Stonebrook Crest Board of Directors demanding everything, from a new paint job for my barn to removing the unsightly pile of organic waste my compost heap. I filed every single one in the recycling bin. Then came the unauthorized structures fiasco. I had a beautiful old oak tree near the creek that had partially died. I hired a professional crew to take the heavy limbs down. As they were working, 2 men in matching polo shirts, calling themselves the HOA Architectural Review Team, drove up. "You need to stop that work," the head guy shouted. "That tree is on the community view corridor. You need a permit to remove it. This tree is on my land, 10 feet from the property line, and it's a hazard," I explained, trying to keep my patience. "I don't need your permit." "Oh, yes, you do," the other guy chimed in, pulling out a measuring tape. "That tree provides shade for the creek, which is a community water feature. Any modification is subject to review." I walked over to them, pointing at the surveyor's brightly painted marker, which I had secured with concrete to the ground this time. "This marker is my property line. You are both standing on my private land. Get off now, or I'm calling the sheriff for trespassing." They backed away, muttering darkly, but the crew finished the job. It was clear they were pushing, testing my boundaries at every turn. They simply could not accept that there was an island of freedom next to their fortress of rules. The major turning point came when they tried to lay claim to the physical land. I had put up a temporary, brightly colored plastic ribbon fence along the surveyed boundary to make it clear where the line was. I was gone for a few days, getting supplies for the new permanent fence. When I returned, the ribbon was gone, and in its place, just inside my property line, was a neatly manicured gravel-lined walking path with a small wooden sign, "Stonebrook Crest Community Nature Path, residents only." I stood there, absolutely speechless. They had paved a path with gravel. On my property, they didn't just trespass. They performed a physical act of seizure of my land. I felt a cold knot of dread twist in my stomach. This wasn't petty. This was criminal. They were trying to establish an adverse possession claim by openly claiming the land as their own. My immediate response was to document everything. I took hundreds of photos, recording every inch of the new illegal path. Then, I called my lawyer. "They've gone too far, Josh," he said, his voice grave. "This is a serious legal maneuver. We need to file a quiet title action immediately and get a temporary restraining order to stop the use of that path. But first, you need to make it absolutely clear that this is a hostile intrusion." I asked, "Block it. Erect a physical barrier. Make the dispute visible. Call the police and report the theft of your gravel and the construction of an unauthorized path on your land." I didn't wait. I drove to the nearest home supply store and bought 5 heavy-duty steel private property signs and a dozen bags of quickset concrete. I went out with a post hole digger and planted the steel signs right in the middle of their precious little path. On my property, securing the posts with concrete. I wanted to see the look on Brenda's face when she walked her little dog down her community nature path and found 5 steel signs blocking her way. I was finishing the last sign when Brenda, accompanied by 3 other HOA board members, arrived. They looked like they were on a serious, official inspection tour. They stopped dead when they saw the concrete setting around the steel posts. Brenda's face turned scarlet. She marched directly towards me, her eyes blazing. "What is the meaning of this vandalism?" she screamed, pointing at the wet concrete. "You are destroying community property. That path is a designated easement." "No, it's not, Brenda," I said, resting my hand on the last signpost. "This path is an illegal trespass on my private property. I've called my lawyer, and I've filed a police report for trespass and vandalism. This is the only warning you will get. Get off my property." She completely lost it. Her face, already contorted in a mask of pure, unadulterated fury, was mere inches from mine. She was shrieking, utterly unhinged, her voice cracking as she stomped her foot on my dusty driveway. "I am the law here. This land is an affront, and I am going to reclaim it for the community. She grabbed the bright yellow flag marking my property line and violently ripped it out of the ground, tossing it into the air like a piece of trash. Then she pulled out her phone, dialing, her eyes fixed on me with a malevolent glare. "You have no idea who you're messing with, freeloader," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. The sound of a large dump truck, my first shipment of fence posts, started rumbling up my road. And that's when everything went wrong. I stood there watching the dump truck slow to a halt, the sound of its massive diesel engine dominating the serene mountain air. Brenda was still screaming into her phone, presumably calling the police or their lawyer. The 3 board members with her were starting to look nervous, their eyes flicking between the massive truck, the concrete setting around my new private property signs, and the frothing rage of their leader. I took a deep breath, and with absolute calm, I addressed the driver of the truck. "Pull in right here," I instructed, pointing to the edge of my driveway. "We're unloading the heavy posts along the creek line first." Brenda slammed her phone shut, her eyes wide with renewed horror. "Fence posts? You're building a fence? You absolutely cannot. That will block the entire view corridor. You are not approved." I finally snapped. I took a step toward her, my voice low and dangerous. "Brenda, you stole my property. You illegally paved a path on my private land to try and claim ownership. You have repeatedly trespassed and harassed me. And now you're telling me what I can build on my own property? You have zero legal authority here." Just then, 2 vehicles arrived, a sheriff's cruiser and a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. The sheriff's deputy stepped out, and from the sedan, a man in a sharp suit emerged, holding a briefcase. I instantly recognized the lawyer. "What's the situation here, Mr. Carter?" the deputy asked, looking at the setting concrete, the board members, and the distraught Brenda. "Deputy, I'm the owner," I said, holding out my deed. "This woman and her associates illegally constructed a gravel path on my land to establish an adverse possession claim. I am securing my property. She is interfering with a legal construction project." Brenda rushed past me to the lawyer. "Mr. Stevens, tell him. Tell him he can't put up a fence. Tell him this is a designated easement." The lawyer, Mr. Stevens, a very serious man, didn't even look at Brenda. He walked up to me, extending his hand. "Mr. Carter, I'm Mr. Stevens. Representing the Stonebrook Crest HOA, my board members were acting under the STS mistaken belief that the easement extended to this area." He paused, his expression apologetic but clearly terrified of the legal repercussions. "I've just reviewed the surveys you filed with the county. The HOA concedes the path is entirely on your property. We apologize for the illegal construction and the subsequent harassment." Brenda's jaw dropped. "Concedes. Mr. Stevens, you can't. This is my community. This land is mine." Mr. Stevens turned to Brenda, his voice sharp. "Mrs. Hayes, you need to be silent. The HOA is facing a lawsuit for slander of title and destruction of property because of your actions. We are here to mitigate damages." He turned back to me. "Mr. Carter, the HOA agrees to fully pay for the removal of the path. All legal fees you've incurred, the replacement of the gravel with topsoil. And we are prepared to offer a 5-figure settlement to drop the quiet title and harassment claims." Brenda let out a wail that startled the dump truck driver. The deputy immediately stepped in, guiding her away. "Ma'am, you need to calm down and step off this property. You are disturbing the peace." The climax had arrived, and it was a complete, documented legal surrender. I had one. Not just the battle over the fence, but the war for my absolute property rights. The look on Brenda's face as Mr. Stevens dictated the terms of their surrender. Moment she realized her entitlement had cost her. Community of fortune was the most satisfying sight I'd ever seen. I accepted the terms. The HOA removed the path, paid my legal fees, and sent the massive settlement check. My new, beautiful, imposing fence went up. A 6-foot-tall symbol of my absolute, non-negotiable sovereignty. The moral of the story is simple. Always, always know your deed. Don't fight emotion with emotion. Fight entitlement with law and concrete. My ranch is now a true sanctuary, completely walled off from the self-imposed prison of Stonebrook Crest. But I still see Brenda sometimes, driving slowly past my new fence, her eyes burning with resentment. I have a feeling the next generation of HOA fanatics is already being groomed.